Hello, this webinar is entitled What is an Education, Health and Care Plan and Does My Child Need One? SENDIASS is a special educational needs and disability information, advice and support service. We provide a service for children and young people from 0 to 25 and their parents and carers. The information that we give them is factual, found in SEN law and practice, as well as some local knowledge and, if necessary, signposting to other services. The advice we provide is impartial on what steps to take in the areas of education, health and social care, and the support we provide is confidential and individual to support and empower those who seek our assistance. By the end of this webinar, I hope that you will understand what SEN Support is, know how the graduated approach works, feel more confident about communicating with school, understand what an education, health and care needs assessment is, have a basic knowledge of what an education, health and care plan is, and feel more confident about requesting an education, health and care needs assessment if necessary, and know how and where to access the support. The webinar has been split into 2 sessions, and I will start with SEN Support, and then I will carry on talking about the education, health and care needs process. SEN Support. All children learn in different ways and make differing rates of progress. Some find learning harder than others and may need more help and support to make progress. Special educational needs is defined in law as a learning difficulty or disability which requires special educational provision. This is when a child has significantly greater difficulty learning than others the same age, or their disability is a physical or mental impairment that has a substantial long-term adverse effect on their ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities, and so prevents them making use of general facilities provided in mainstream schools. They may experience delays in achieving developmental milestones and/or academic attainment. There are 4 broad areas of need: communication and interaction, cognition and learning, social, emotional and mental health, and sensory and physical. Children with SEN should be given support with their learning to help them make progress. The support that they are given is called SEN Support and is defined as help that is additional to or different from the support generally given to most of the children of the same age. Schools are legally required to publish reports of their SEN provision. This is in the form of an SEN information report, and it can be found on the school's website. Healthcare and social care provision that educates or trains a child is also considered to be SEP. So, for instance, speech and language therapy. If a school cannot meet the child's needs from their own resources, the other way that SEP can be obtained is through an education, health and care plan, which is secured by the local authority. All teachers should regularly check whether their pupils are making progress. If they think your child is finding it harder than others to make progress, they should consider whether they might have SEN or need additional or different support from the others in the class. The school must talk to you and your child about this and involve you in decisions before they start giving, reducing, removing extra or different support to your child. A child with challenging or disruptive behaviour can be an indication of unmet needs, and so the school should try to identify these as early as possible and intervene to avoid escalation leading to a possible exclusion or missing out on education. Sometimes you may be the first to be aware that your child has SEN. If you think that your child may need SEN support, you should talk to your child's teacher or to the school's Special Educational Needs Coordinator, known as a SENCO. Every school must have a qualified SENCO. They have the day-to-day responsibility for how children with SEN are supported within the school and to coordinate the special provision for individual pupils. Settings other than schools, such as colleges, will have the equivalent of a SENCO, somebody who coordinates the SEN support in that setting. Schools have a legal duty to identify and address the SEN of all pupils and use the best endeavours to make sure that any child with SEN gets the support they need. This means doing everything they can to meet the pupil's SEN. Therefore, they must make reasonable adjustments to support a child in accessing their education. Schools use a guidance document on SEN support from their local authority to help them decide whether and what type of support your child needs. This helps to make sure that all schools and settings in a local authority's area have a clear and consistent approach to identifying when a child or a young person has SEN and how to support them to achieve good outcomes, including what schools are expected to put in place from the funding they receive. The SEN Code of Practice is a statutory guidance document that informs schools and organisations on how to put SEN law from the Children and Families Act 2014 into practice. Within its guidance there are some musts, which are compulsory, and there's some shoulds that need to be done, and there must be good reason as to why, if a school fails to deliver that support, why they have not done that. Schools SEN funding. All schools receive a core budget. That's the general provision for all pupils, including those with SEN. Also, alongside that, there is something called an SEN notional budget, and that's based on an estimated number of SEN children in that particular school. The government recommends up to an additional £6,000 per SEN pupil for special educational provision. Occasionally, there may be need for some top-up funding or element 3 if the individual SEN pupil needs are more than the £6,000 funding. Schools' SEN support should take the form of a 4-part cycle: assess, plan, do, review. Assess is when the assessment is made of your child's needs, planning, how to address to meet those needs, the doing, how to put that plan into practice, and the review of how it's going and if anything needs to change. The SENCO will work with teaching staff to assess your child's individual needs so that they receive the right support. If the school decides that your child needs SEN support, they should agree with you what help will be provided, the outcomes that will be set, the date when you can check what progress has been made. Schools should keep a record of this plan and share it with all of those that work with your children so that they are aware and can implement any teaching strategies that are needed. Your child's teacher is responsible for the work that is done with your child and should work closely with any teaching assistants or specialist staff involved. School should always then review your child's progress and the difference that this support has made on the date agreed in the plan. If your child has not made progress in spite of having received extra support, the review should decide what needs to happen next. This may include more or different help or accessing specialist advice. All pupils learn in different ways, can have different kinds or levels of SEN. Therefore, the SEN support system uses a graduated approach. This means that increasingly, step by step, special expertise can be brought in to help the school with the difficulties the child may have. This might include individually designed learning programme, drawing up of a personal plan, setting targets, advice or extra help from specialists or specialist teachers. Involving specialists. The school should keep you informed and include you in all discussions and decisions, taking you and your child's feelings and wishes into consideration. If your child does not make enough progress, the teacher or the SENCO should then talk to you about asking for advice from outside professionals. The Code of Practice says that a school can ask for this advice at any point, but should always involve a specialist where a pupil continues to work at levels substantially below others in their class or make little or no progress, despite having received appropriate support delivered by appropriately trained staff. It also says that when your child is identified as having SEN, the school should take action to remove barriers to learning and put effective special educational provision in place. Outside professionals may include, but are not limited to, the following: an educational psychologist, specialist teacher, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists. If you disagree with the school on what progress has been made, You could ask the class teacher or SENCO to go through the SEN Support guidance with you and discuss any points where there is a disagreement about what your child is finding difficult. If other professionals have not already been involved, you might suggest that it could be helpful to have them, to give a clearer picture of your child's difficulties and to help plan for the next steps. Sometimes the next step may be to ask the local authority for an education, health and care needs assessment. If the school decides to do this, they must tell you. If you think it is needed, this is something that you can ask for yourself. Here's some example questions to help with that meeting in school with the SENCO or class teacher that will help you raise your concerns. The sorts of things you might want to know about are how they're measuring your child's progress. Have any assessments been done, and what were the results of these assessments? You could ask to see some examples of the work that shows that your child is making progress and ask what the next steps are. You could ask about the support. Is it possible some other agencies could come in to offer some additional information? And of course, you could ask how you can support your child at home. To make the most of the meetings that you might want to arrange with the SENCO or class teacher, ensure that it's formally arranged at a mutually convenient time. Ask for and send written confirmations of any actions or any outcomes for that meeting, keeping written and dated records. Think about what it is that you're asking the school for. You may want to come up with a list of reasonable adjustments, things that you and your child have discussed or that you believe might be helpful to make their time in school more manageable. If you want to find out more information about SEN support in your child's school, have a look at their SEN information report, which can be found on their website. Talk to your child's teacher or possibly arrange a meeting with the SENCO. Get in touch with us at SENDIASS. We have a lot of fact sheets and other webinars that you might be interested in to support you. And also have a look at your local authority's local offer. Type into any search engine the name of your local authority and then local offer, and the website should come up. This has a wealth of information about anything to do with special educational needs in your local area. The second section of this webinar, I will now talk about education, health and care plans. Some children with special educational needs may need more support than would be ordinarily available to them at the SEN support level. These pupils receive support through an education, health and care plan. This is a legal document that describes the child or the young person's special educational, health and social care needs. It details the support that is required to meet those needs and how that support will enable the child or young person to achieve a set of outcomes. An education, health and care needs assessment is the detailed exploration to find out what your child's special educational needs are and what provision should be put in place to meet them. It's the step before a plan, often simply known as an EHCP, but it doesn't always lead to a plan being written. Does my child need an educational, health and care needs assessment? If you are concerned that your child is not making progress despite the level of support they're currently getting at school or wherever their educational setting is, you have the right to ask the local authority to carry out an assessment of their needs. The sorts of things that that local authority will consider is whether your child has or may have a level of needs that requires their provision to be made via an educational, health and care plan. So do they require personalised interventions? Has advice from specialist services been requested and implemented and monitored and regularly reviewed? Are they on the SEN register? Is the school working closely with you parents, child or the young person? And are they regularly monitoring progress as part of an assess, plan and do review cycle? Has the school applied for additional top-up funding? Is a common assessment framework or team around the child in place? Is a medical care plan in place? There is a legal duty that local authorities must follow to secure assessment. So the local authority must secure an education, health and care needs assessment if the child has or may have special educational needs, and it may be necessary for extra provision to be made through a plan. There is no set criteria for an education, health and care needs assessment. Local authorities can only refuse a request if the submission does not meet this legal test. The SEN Code of Practice is statutory guidance that informs schools and organisations on how to put this SEN law into practice. The legal test that the local authority must apply when considering any application for an education, health and care needs assessment is, after having regard to any views expressed and evidence submitted, the authority is of the opinion that the child or young person has or may have special educational needs, and it may be necessary for special educational provision to be made for the child or young person in accordance with an education, health and care plan. When an application for an education, health and care needs assessment is submitted to the local authority, it will then begin the 20-week statutory timeline. There are opportunities throughout each stage of that timeline to challenge any decisions that the local authority makes. A parent, school or college can make an application for an education, health and care needs assessment request. A young person, that's somebody aged between 16 and 25, you'll need their direct permission in order to do that if you're doing that on their behalf. You should make a written request and make sure you keep any copies of any letters that you send to the local authority. Your letter should set out why you believe your child has or may have special educational needs and why you believe that they may need special educational provision by way of a plan. Send this to the local authority's Special Educational Needs team. There is no legal prescribed format, although many local authorities may expect you to fill in their own forms for making an educational, health and care needs assessment request. The sorts of information that you will need to include in your submission to the local authority will be around the nature, extent and context of your child's SEN, any other needs, physical, emotional, social development and health needs. Make sure that you include any relevant evidence from any professional reports or assessments that you have. Send in information about their learning progress. Send in information about their past, current or additional support. And also make sure that you include information about what you want to achieve through access to special educational provision. That is about achieving educational outcomes, preparation for adulthood, independence and social skills, etc. You'll need to provide evidence to support your request for an educational, health and care needs assessment. This could include your own parental or carer evidence, the young person's voice, written statements from teachers, information from the school or college records, written statements from people that work with that young person, social workers, youth workers, health professionals, your child's school, work or college reports, and any other professional reports that you have. Make sure that you include these. We always recommend to parents to make copies of everything that you send to the local authority. Make sure that you get written confirmation of the delivery of your request submission. Refer to or use any direct quotes in the law or SEN Code of Practice. Make sure that you keep an eye on that 20-week timeline. Write all the dates in your diary. Once you've sent your education, health and care needs assessment request to the local authority, they will come back to you within 6 weeks as to whether they are going to assess or not. You can find out more about education, health and care plans by looking at the relevant sections of the Children and Families Act or looking at the Code of Practice. Do have a look at the SENDIASS website for your area. There are lots of other training courses that we offer and other webinars. And also have a look at the local authority's local offer. They will have a whole page and section devoted to education, health and care needs assessment in their area. I do hope that you have found this webinar useful. If you have any questions, then please do contact your local SENDIASS team. Bye bye.